Hello, and welcome to the video presentation of SIS Construct365 dashboards. Today we're going to be taking a look at the dashboards created by SIS for finance and operations, leveraging the Power Business Intelligence engine. So let's dive in to the presentation. First, what we're seeing here is the finance and operations landing page where I have some workspaces. I'm going to go into my project management workspace. It's my tailored experience. And over here I have my SIS Power BI reports. Reports I'm going to be looking at today are the project cost analysis, the project health dashboard, the production performance report, work in progress dashboard, and finally my time phase forecasting and forecast trend analysis. So let's jump in. Let's start with the project cost analysis. As you see, I'm connecting to the Power BI service within finance and operations. And the business intelligence has taken some of my data and it's presented to me in a usable format. In the top left hand, like any report, we have a time period that we would expect to have to run this report by a certain interval. Here I have the option to click on the field and to move the date to a calendar. See my data changing. Or I can use a slider, go back years into the data. And it's going to present me with that time interval. For today's presentation, I'm going to use the most recent time interval. Now, what I am looking at is the enterprise level. And what's great about business intelligence is you can do a top-down approach. Start the enterprise. I can go down to the business unit, department, the cost center, however your organization is structured. I can even get deeper than that, of course. Transaction, project manager, projects. I'm going to show you some of that functionality. So underneath you see this box, select project manager. I'm going to select myself. As I do that, you'll see this project list filter to the projects that I'm on, that I'm running. So we can look at Rick Crowley. Well, he's got a margin of $3.65 million at 17%. He's 31% on all his projects. But I even want to get deeper, so I'm going to look at one of the projects, feeder line 6. As I did that, you saw up top here, there's a budget variance of $30,000. And that budget variance is, we have some original and current budget, original change orders that make the current budget, and there's been some change in my estimated cost of completion, that there's been a variance, whether favorable or non-favorable, in this case non-favorable. But this project's 25% complete. That means I can go in there and find out if there's some change I can make to get this back on track. The margin seems okay, and there's about 90%. So what I'd like to do is take a look down here at the bottom. And that's with a principal sort of project cost analysis. You see the task code number with a description. You're seeing next the budget category. So for instance, excavation, we have material, labor, and equipment split out. The current budget amount, which I said was the original plus the change orders, and the quantity. And then any changes that's been made in the EAC or the ECAC, estimated cost of completion. So for instance, on our excavation line, we can see as I click on it, it's budgeted at $97,500. It's at $112,000. So we have a variance of $15,000. I clicked on it again and it brought back all the rest of the data. And now we see the budget variance over here. We add these up, that's our $30,000 as you're seeing here. We also have our committed, our purchase orders that have been confirmed that haven't been received, and the actuals are all hours, labor, expenses, anything that's hit the project, job cost. And then the estimate to complete. So within that list, you're seeing all the activities in the related categories. If we look at this KPI, we have a committed and actual versus ETC. estimated to complete. So if I look at that and hover over things, I can see I have 379,000 in estimated to complete, making up about 56% of my project. 24% of actuals has come in, which is right on time about my 25% complete. And I have some committed amounts, 121,000. So let's kind of look at some of the risks. Let's look at my subcontractor. Well, the purple's telling me that this is all committed, $75,000. I bought out my subcontract, and that's captured down here in my committed button. So we're good there. Well, let's look at the material. Material's a different story. Although I have some committed, 28%, I have 53% of my material is not committed at this point. Risk. So we can look at this kind of visualizations of our data very quickly. We can see what's billed on this project, a trend analysis of what's budgeted, what the estimated cost of completion, and what the actuals are. We're running about the same. The cash position. And then we have a labor analysis, which is dealing with our quantity. So we budgeted a certain amount here, 3,580 hours. But I've made a 200-hour adjustment, and I've used 1,378. If I went to the labor category over here, I'll see those numbers, 3,580. There's that 200 adjustment, and that's going to be, we've used 1,378. So there's a lot of information here that I can capture and do analysis on quickly by slicing and dicing on budget categories, projects, project managers, periods. And I can even take an approach to look at a task code across the whole project. So if I unclick Rick Crowley, came in here, hit material, I'm looking at the whole entity. So the next report I want to look at is called our Project Health Dashboard. Project Health Dashboard has 6 KPIs that are great for a project manager or project executive to be looking at. It also has the ability to do some filtering, as you see up top. So for now, I'm going to look at daily progress as a contract type. Once again, I could filter by the project manager or a period. But here we have my year-to-date revenue on this contract, the cost, the gross margin percentage year-to-date, the revenue backlog, and the gross margin backlog. Quick numbers that I want to see by contract type, by project, in certain periods. And what are these KPIs? We have a project profitability by gross margin, which is basically saying, what did I book the project at, and has it faded to a certain percentage? We have a threshold of 4% here, but that could be insurance company's discretion. I can look at the labor analysis, how labor is running. Is it seasonal? How many hours am I using? It seems like I've had a spike over here. I could probably dig into that and figure out why. Like cost analysis, seeing what percentage of labor, material, subcontracting, material, other I'm using. Approved changeovers against pending. It looks like in this contract, all the changeovers are approved. Over under billing, always want to know, and the cash position on the project. So 6 KPIs that can give us a kind of feel or the pulse of the projects and the contract types. The next dashboard I'd like to talk about is the production performance report or dashboard. This is meant for companies that do production in units and they want KPIs and to look at that. So first, down here in my description, what I'm going to do is search. I'm going to put concrete in here and search. But what I automatically did is I took every task code that had the word concrete, so concrete formwork, concrete reinforcement, structural concrete. And just like in our project cost analysis, we have a list view down here. Now, I do have all the projects that contain concrete, but I'm going to kind of look for just one particular. So I'm going to put Walt, and that's a Walt Disney project. And you see here, so I've looked at, now I'm looking at the Walt Disney Concert Hall, anything to do with concrete. And first we have our budgeted items, as you see right here. What are our budgeted hours, our budgeted amount, our budgeted unit, and then what are the per unit per hours per unit, amount per unit, giving us our KPIs. And then next we have our actuals in here. So we're quickly able to look at the actuals, just like what we actually used. What's the actual amount? What's the actual unit? And then the actual hours per unit and actual amount per unit. So if we look at concrete reinforcement, we budgeted 1,400 hours, amount 207,000. So we're going to produce about every 15 minutes, we're going to produce a unit at $34 a unit. Well, we use 500, 49,000. We've used 2,312 units. We're producing a little under 15 minutes, but we're producing at $21.25. That's going to give us a very close KPIs. You see up here, our performance ratio hours above 1. We got a check. And our amount's doing really well because we said we're going to do it at 34, but we're doing it at 21. So we're getting a 1.62. Once again, we could do this by some sort of date. Project wasn't even live then. So you're seeing the highlighted part in here of the whole concrete. If I click back off on concrete, I'm seeing all the concrete tasks. So in this, we have our hours per unit and our amount per unit. So this is a nice little dashboard to quickly draw information about certain tasks. So you see here, I'm now looking at concrete across the whole entity. Power Business Intelligence gives you this power to look at this type of task quickly and drill down. The next report I'd like to look at is the work in progress. At SIS, we have your WIP report in a printable SSRS option. However, we also have a dashboard. So here I have this with a segment. I'm going to, first of all, look at commercial and office. So here I am now, I'm slicing the data by a segment type. So let's look at commercial. Now it's going to take all my projects, and these are all the projects that are in the commercial office. What's it saying? Well, I have some projects in Texas, Georgia, and Florida, and it has my contract amounts as I hover over those. Georgia, 894,000. Texas, 4 million is my big player, and that's why it's really highlighted. Now down at the bottom, you're going to see the totals, the contract amount, the estimated cost, the stuff you'd expect, estimated gross margin, year-to-date cost, year-to-date billing, and year-to-date revenue. We're seeing percent complete for all those projects. Billing and open AR. Gross margin change from backlog. So I've had a 1.5% change from when I originally booked the projects. And then we're going to look at the pending change orders, what we have there, versus $345,000 versus the contract amount. So now if you wanted even a closer look at this, and I went into the Segway Jacksonville project. So now it's on Anaheim, Florida. These some different numbers, 71% complete. There's a lot that needs to be billed. There's a billing backlog, some balance, and I've had a 3% gross margin change. So just like a work in progress report, you'd expect an SSRS, single server reporting service on a printable version. You can quickly do the same thing in Power Business Intelligence. And we've presented this data, as you see, visualizations. One last report I'd like to talk about is the time-based forecasting or forecast trend analysis. This is basically a profit and loss backlog report. We have the ability for the project manager to forecast out the P&L backlog. You can, and once we have that, we calculate the revenue and margin associated with that over so many forecasting periods. For instance, we have this Austin Community College, and we can see or the Embassy Suites. We can see these projects change as I click on them, and we have these curves here, and we can look at different amounts. So I'm looking at January, February, March, April. As in Power BI, you can always pick multiple options too. We can do that. So if you wanted to see this project and this project, how they're looking, well, you have that ability. Multiple projects, multiple tabs, and see how are they working together. It's a really nice app. Cost versus revenue, you have a list view in the bottom, and then the city of the project.